faith into the Grace Act League, and so that kids had a better chance of owning what they learned throughout the day in the classroom, and that what they do learn in the classroom throughout the day is not lost when they go onto the court or the fields, because athletics is same part of our ministry and mission throughout our school, and that's when I sat down with Jill to try to brainstorm some
And
stuff.
when we sit down like that in our office, it's an ideal situation to use design thinking, because we don't already know what our idea is that we're going to launch, but we need to really look at all the pieces. So we sat down and thought, we need to back up and talk about all the things we observe, or that Conrad observes, that got to the point where we knew something had to happen. Things we observe, or that Conrad observes, that got to the point where we knew something had to happen. And so it seems like human-centered design was the angle to take in that meeting. But the coolest part is, maybe talk about this, is what idea came out of our session and how is that going to roll out?
So we thought the best idea at the time was to have the kids try to kind of own it themselves, and maybe that will, help the coaches see, maybe be better leaders, and just kind of get a broader scope of what this is all about. So we are launching a little test pilot this spring for softball and baseball teams of a pregame prayer leader, a postgame prayer leader, and a spiritual coach that players on the team will rotate through each game and sign up for, hoping that the coaches can help them in this, and that it's a learning experience for everybody. So that's going to be happening this spring, and our plan is to gather feedback throughout the year, test it, and build upon it, and hopefully this is step one of many, and that we can lead into the future, possibly even next fall, with more ideas on the subject.
Mm-hmm. And so coming out of the meeting, when we built the prototype of what communication does everyone need in order to launch, you did a launch with your executive committee.
Yep.
And how did that go?
The message was received fairly well, and we took it to our council meeting, which was last night, and we still plan to do everything, gather some feedback from them on ideas for the future, but it's still a go for the spring, and that's going to be introduced to the coaches at our coaches meeting in about 2 weeks.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
After learning the design thinking process, it is really hard to be in a meeting and not use the language and pieces and parts of the cycle of design thinking. And I especially notice it in myself when I'm running a meeting of any kind, with teachers, with principals, with people from our office. Really making sure we're not trying to solve a problem that isn't a problem. Going back to what are we observing? What do we see? What is the data that's driving us to this moment of trying to figure out a problem or a question that we're trying to answer? It has been really helpful because it refocuses our time in a variety of settings.
Yeah, and I think the important part of that is collecting all of those observations and having, in that meeting setting, having people really take a step back and look at everything that has to do with the problem or whatever we're trying to accomplish.
And sometimes the things that we're launching are so huge that we forget that we should do a practice. We should do that prototype step. We do this really well with students in classrooms. We have them build a model, and sometimes that is the launch. In our setting, sometimes we're doing huge things, and we forget that we can call it a prototype. We can test it, we can tweak it before it becomes a giant launch. But you saw a lot of this at the beginning of your EdTech network.
Yeah, definitely. When we started the EdTech network at the beginning of this year, first it was 3 of us, the coaches at West and Catholic, and I, just in a room kind of brainstorming, going through a lot of observation, asking questions on what does the network need. And then from there, our first EdTech meeting was all the beginning stages of design thinking. So We did a series of questions, a lot of gathering of observations of what those tech leaders or teachers were seeing in their schools, and then what their goals were for based out of all of that. So
Which is important because, and think about the first day of school or the first time you have a committee coming together in these meetings, you think, well, how might we use this collaborative time to serve the needs of our schools or to serve the needs of our positions? Otherwise, you're launching a committee or a network and no one knows what the goal is because we're not negotiating that. It's not the shared control of what are we doing here. So
Right.
I think that works.
yeah, and it's awesome too because you can sit and brainstorm with a smaller group of people and think you know what the needs are or have an idea, and when you bring it to a larger group, there's things that come up that you don't even think about. So
And the more of us who know the design thinking process, the more this just happens naturally in conversations, and maybe some of our teachers are feeling that in some of their schools who have had a lot of people come through the cohorts. They're starting to use that as they collaborate among teachers and as they plan units with their students. I think we're getting a lot of work done using this approach.
me too.